And welcome back to the Veterans Radio Show. My name is Shelley Harrison, and I'm your host. We want to thank you for tuning in today. We're here every Friday, and today we have a wonderful guest that I know that you're going to want to get your notepad ready and really listen in, because he's got some great nuggets to share with us today. We want to thank our audience for joining us. I know we have people joining all over the world, and we really want to hear your questions. Thank you for subscribing to the National Veterans Radio Show. If you haven't subscribed already, please make it a point to go to YouTube and you can subscribe there. And we are streaming on multiple platforms. So we have LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And again, my name is Shelley Harrison. I'm your host, and I'm also the CEO of Luminary Leaders, which is my own company. And I come on here as your co-host with my other co-host, Dolly Rivera. So shout out to Dolly out there. And we also want to thank our backstage folks who we have Tammy, who is our producer, and we want to give her a shout out there. And then I want to thank our executive director, Joseph Molina. So Mr. Molina has been running the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce for many, many years. And we have wonderful programs that you can take a look at. Just look at our website. I know that we usually put that in the show notes. So you'll want to check the website out and see what programs that we have offered for our veterans and veteran spouses, families, pretty much everyone that we want to make sure we cover. And on this show, we bring on heroes. And today we have a hero he's going to explain a little bit about his story, and you'll get to meet Dr. Fred Moss. But let me tell you a little bit about him. Dr. Fred, he is a mental health advocate, psychiatrist serving in many capacities. He's a keynote speaker, psychiatry expert witness, a podcaster, mental health coach, and a filmmaker. A desire to help people be real and heard has been the driving force leading him to multiple settings and roles as a psychiatrist over the years, and compelling him to continually look for better, more effective ways to provide the highest quality care to align people with their truest self, to deliver into an eagerly awaiting world. He is the amazing creator of Welcome to Humanity, the True Voice course, Healing the Healer, and Global Madness. As the founder of Welcome to Humanity movement and the True Voice Mastermind and methodology, Dr. Fred now finds himself making the difference he came here to make, here to the world. His years in the community, where he has been a physician to over 40,000 patients. That's a lot of patients. All over the country. And his storied and adventurous life traveling around the world has now left him uniquely qualified to remind us all of what we already know. Communication is where love arises from, and speaking truth and listening authentically are the source of the love. So please help me welcome Dr. Fred Moss. Hi, Dr. Fred. How are you?
Hi, Shelley. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. It's great to be with you again, and thanks for having me on the show.
Well, we are so excited to have you here. And I know that our veterans are going to learn a lot today. We have the general public watching, and we want to make sure that people, put their questions into the chat today as we go through this conversation. And, Dr. Fred, I'd like to start it. Normally, I read your bio, but I know there's more. And I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and, how do you feel about being here today on the show? Share that with us.
It's a sheer honor to be here on the show today. I love working, to make a difference. And this is a group of people, the group that has, protected our country and has done so much to have us feel safe and sound and profoundly secure. during the years of my life. I'm running at 65 years old at this point. Today, in fact, is my 3/4 birthday, so I'm 65 and 3/4 today. And none of that could have happened without the
Yeah,
protection and security and safety that's been provided by the veterans over the years. My
absolutely.
father was a veteran for World War II, and it is just an honor to be able to follow footsteps. I was never in the military directly, but I have worked at VA hospitals on several occasions in Chicago and Cincinnati. So it's an honor to be here with you and to actually share a little bit of my story and what it is that we can do regarding mental illness and mental health in this community and in all communities outside of the veterans, as well as in the country and in the world at large.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you to your father for serving. I mean, that is extraordinary. And, you are serving. I mean, you're serving so many people and again, our veterans. And, thank you for helping in the VA hospitals that you have in the past. I mean, that's just extraordinary work. And we definitely appreciate that at the Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. Fred, I would really like to start, go looking back. And I want to say that it was 2008, 2009, where a shift happened for you in terms of, treating people and then now doing the work that you're doing. So can we start there?
Sure. It's actually 2006, Shelley, but
2006. Oh, okay.
So basically, I had been a psychiatrist. I went into psychiatry because I really didn't like psychiatry. I had been, after I dropped out of college the second time, my mom gave me, an opportunity to get a job, and she got me an application at a state mental health facility working with adolescent boys.
Yeah.
And I came into psychiatry actually because psychiatry had been shifting so drastically. It was becoming a field that was more based on medication and diagnoses than actually connecting and communicating with people. And I really learned at that hospital that connection and communication are at the heart of all healing. So I went into psychiatry thinking that I would bring that forth. But in my first several years after my residency, I was really typecast to be a diagnoser and a medicator. So we're looking at from about 1991 to 2006, or 15 years, where that's what I did. And it was kind of against my will. It was a soul sacrifice. I didn't believe that I was doing the best thing for my clients all the time. And I had made an oath as well. My oath was first do no harm. And here I was 15 years later, realizing that maybe I wasn't living up to that oath. So in 2006, I began to do something that was thought to be pretty radical, and that was to take people off their medicine.
That is radical.
It seems like that's radical. In fact, what we should be thinking is that putting people on medicine is radical, and taking people off medicine shouldn't be that big of a deal, ultimately. We just give them back their lives and let them go live the life that they came here to live. But instead, people get so frightened once they're on medicines that coming off of them is going to be terrible or hard or difficult. The whole cold turkey or going through withdrawal or those kinds of things really frighten people. And in 2006, I took my low-risk patients, and I had a big clinic with a couple thousand clients. I took many of my low-risk patients off of medicines, and lo and behold, they got better. And some of them way better. And some of them, even their diagnosis disappeared entirely. So I began to believe that maybe these medicines weren't doing all the good things that they're marketed to do. And over time, I started looking at, well, how can I make a difference in this area? Because it's not really the medicine's fault. Medicines are simply these little inert, pills. I can't yell at the pills. What's really happening here? So what was happening, what I noticed is that people were accepting diagnoses and taking on diagnoses that there was something wrong with them. Now, if there's something wrong with you, that's why you go to a doctor. You go to a doctor, and what does a doctor do? He gives you that diagnosis and then oftentimes gives you medications.
A prescription.
Yeah, exactly. And then with that prescription, if the medicines aren't doing you good, you might actually get worse with the prescription. And it might even be marketing. It might even be, perpetuating the symptoms that it's marketed to treat. And that was what I was finding. So ultimately, I started shifting my focus into helping people see that in many cases, maybe there's nothing wrong with you. Like, after all, we don't blame a log for burning in a fire, Shelley. When it's hot outside, a log burns. So when it's hot in the fire, a log burns. There
Mhm.
are many, many, many reasons to be depressed or to be anxious or to be afraid or to be disrupted or to be scattered
Yeah.
or to be unsure of oneself. There are many reasons in the world these days. It's a very challenging world for humanity. And it may not be that you're having anything that's actually wrong with you. Your body and your mind and your spirit may be responding as any human would if they were you. And when we start getting
Mhm.
that maybe there's nothing wrong with you, then you might learn that if there's nothing wrong with me and I'm just having an unpleasant time, then I don't need to be fixed. And if I don't need to be fixed, I don't need to be introduced to medications. If I'm not introduced to medications, I don't have to face the music that maybe the medicines actually perpetuate the symptoms they're marketed to treat. And I can
Mhm.
keep myself well. Well,
Right.
what is the way to stay well? The way to stay well is connecting like you and I are doing today. Human connection is at the heart of all healing, Shelley. And
Yeah.
in order to do that, self-expression in all its many forms and authentic listening is what's required. And we're talking about finding our truest voice so that
Mhm.
we can self-address, so that we can self-express genuinely.
Absolutely. And I look at our veterans, where they come back when they come back into, becoming a civilian again, the things, the trauma and things that they have gone through, some of them do need to be on medication, and I know that's a disclaimer you have where, those low case or low kind of the patients that don't really need to be on medication. However, I know you've always talked about, people that truly do need to be on vacation, not vacation, medication, that they do need to be on medication. And let's see, what time becoming this, I guess. Oh, okay. And we had well, actually, we had a couple of comments. So we had Nick Bus, let's go, Dr. Fred. And then we also have a question. So this is from Jean on YouTube. Let's see. Why did you spend so much time becoming a psychiatrist? Why not be a psychologist?
Well, at the
Good
time
question.
it's a great question. At the
Yeah.
time in the mid 80s, when I finally decided to be a psychiatrist, it wasn't yet a medication field.
Mm,
Prozac was introduced in 1987 while I was in medical school, and that was a paradigmatic shift that this country still hasn't recovered from.
yeah.
When Prozac was introduced, it was actually the biggest drug, the most prescribed drug from all specialties
Mm,
in the entire world for 12 straight years. And it was that because the world had taken on a new look at what psychiatry was. Biological psychiatry or chemical imbalance became terms that nowadays are just household words, household understanding. But
yeah.
back then, it wasn't the case. The idea was that I could become a psychiatrist and actually put forth communication and connection from that space. But
Hmm.
while I was in medical school, the whole thing shifted. And once I graduated from medical school, you can't go back and become a psychologist. So I already was a psychiatrist, and I was firmly convinced that I could bring communication forward along with doing all the other things that a psychiatrist is asked to do. And in fact, I did do that for those 15 years, but it was very dominated by being a diagnoser and a medicator. And that was where the discomfort arose for me. So I really appreciate the
Right.
question. Thanks for asking, Gene. Yeah,
Yeah, that
great.
definitely is. And the way and I've known you long enough to where I know that you are all about communication. So when you think of, like a psychologist, they ask a lot of questions and they listen. And I think, with you bringing forward the True Voice program and then all of the other programs that you've created, it's really kind of putting that focus on people so that, they can start to look inward and maybe, like you'd mentioned, they don't need the medication. It could be that there's really nothing wrong with them, you
It could
know?
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you speak to the people you already mentioned earlier, this idea of the people who need medicine.
Yeah.
Um, That's a really controversial issue, to be honest with you. I mean, we look at people and we call them sick or wrong or bad or diseased, and then we feel like we medicate them at that point. The decision to put someone on medicine at that point, when the first decision to medicate someone is a very difficult and delicate decision to make.
It is.
it turns out that these people sometimes, even when they get put on medicine, might have been able to go a different direction and still have healed, still have improved. Once you're on medicine, however, and once you're actually in the world of taking medication each and every day or as frequently as you are, it's not so easy to come off of medicine. And you might have learned that it really does help in some particular way. And to help people come off of medicine is a whole different trip than redirecting them from starting medication in the first place.
Yes,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're doing a lot of different projects, Dr. Fred, with Welcome to Humanity, and you have your book that you've written and other programs that you're running. Can we talk about a few of those? I know, and let's start with Welcome to Humanity, because I think that's the one that I've known initially. And let's just give a little bit of kind of insight around that, because more than what you're doing now, you've got these other things that you've created, and it's really kind of a movement, and you
Yeah.
really want to bring it forward. So let's cover that.
Yeah, so from 2006 forward, that's when I decided that I wanted to actually consider taking people off of medicine and giving them their life back through communication and self-expression. And over the next few years, I took many, many people, hundreds of people off medicine, and all of them pretty much got better. And many of them were able to leave the practice and never have to come back to psychiatry again. Now, over time, I began to do work around the country. You mentioned earlier in my introduction, I did locum tenens work in many different states in the country, and even did work from outside of the country. I did some telepsychiatry from Nepal. I did telepsychiatry from Israel and from Paris and London into the United States.
Yeah.
And so I've always had this idea that, again, connecting. Have you ever noticed that when someone actually gets you and resonates with you, there's a sense of healing that happens between the both of you at that moment?
Absolutely. Yes. There's that connection.
Love. The essence of love is from that resonating connection, that harmonic resonating connection.
Yeah.
And that's what I was noticing in all my telepsychiatric work, is that as long as I was able to connect with somebody, they could actually have strides, like massive strides towards healing that no medication could ever create. There's no medication that actually creates that level of healing.
Yeah.
So Welcome to Humanity was a natural outsource of that, natural birthing in about 2017, where I began to really realize that all the experiences that we're having in this life, and some of them are totally miserable, some of them are nearly unspeakable, some of them are horrible and barbaric and super painful, miserable, all of the experiences that we're having in life are in some ways can be seen as a gift. Even the miserable ones, even the ones that we never want to have again, even the ones we wouldn't wish on anybody, it's kind of a gift to be given all the different flavors that life has to offer. And to be able to get through that and then be able to embrace life for all its many flavors is a very, it's an evolved state. It's a state that allows for life satisfaction over and above the pain and suffering that life often offers up for us. Yeah. So Welcome to Humanity sort of implies that. Welcome to all the human experience, not just the wonderful, ecstatic, light experiences that are extraordinary in a positive direction, but the mediocre experiences and even the disempowering experiences. Welcome to all of them, because this is what the humanity is all about. And so Welcome to Humanity is a way of really paying focus to that and letting people know that that's what's here to be seen, is that all of life is beautiful in its own right, including the stuff that isn't beautiful, if I dare say.
Yeah. No, and I love the way you focus on that and how you explain that, because I think, the work that you're doing and the book that you've written and all of the different, you've written a lot of articles too, I know, and they've been published in very, prestigious magazines and different media outlets. When you look at our veterans, Dr. Fred, what do you recommend for them? When they're coming out of the military and they're coming back into civilian life, knowing that they have the trauma that they dealt with and things that they experienced, what kind of recommendations would you give them in terms of, not necessarily, medications, that's going to treat what they have, but if it's something that can help them, and maybe a where they have that support before they really think about, okay, I might have PTSD or something else, and it could be treated before that without medication.
Yeah, I think the key thing here is to be very honest with yourself and be very, very, very genuine and authentic in your communications. There in some ways, like, watch what you say, be really careful of the words that you use, and meaning that you want them to represent your truest thoughts and feelings when you're sharing with somebody.
Yeah.
But importantly, sharing your views, sharing your thoughts, sharing your experience, even if it seems a little bit dangerous or a little bit vulnerable, this is what I would ask the veterans to bring home. The idea is that they have had extraordinary, outrageous experiences sometimes, and being able to share that with other people is going to open the possibility for connection, for the healing, frankly, not only for the veteran, but for the person who's listening and along with the veteran and sharing with them. Ultimately, connecting with another person genuinely is going to bring a much higher source of healing than any kind of therapy or any kind of medicine or any kind of diagnosis ever will have a chance to do. And that's what I would ask the veterans to really respect.
And that's great advice. That is absolutely great advice. Dr. Fred, the book you wrote, I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but can you share quickly the name of your book? And I know that it has the 8 items in there. Maybe you can mention each of them, because I think those are really important for people to know, so that they can use those modalities to really live a full life and more expressive.
Right. So when speaking about really expressing yourself authentically, words, and like we're doing now, sharing sentences and sharing conversation is not the only way to self-express.
Yeah.
The book is called The Creative 8, Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression. And there's another book that I wrote as well called Find Your True Voice.
Yeah.
Speaking to the Creative 8, however, I think you're looking at art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, and gardening as ways to actually express yourself effectively that go beyond words. Some of them in the visual or performing arts that really access life in ways that words alone can't do. What I have found is that when people are participating in that level of creative self-expression, the symptoms or the misery or the pain or the discomfort or the imbalance disappears while you're doing that. And that's what the book invites people to do. Even 3 minutes a day of choosing 3 different ways to self-express beyond words opens up and activates new pathways to actually heal on your own, heal with other people on your own. Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, no, that Creative 8, when you were even mentioning each of those, it brings a smile to my face, because there's a lot of, happiness that surrounds those 8 creative ideas, or, things that people can do. And like you said, it's something that can really take you away from, just enjoying life and not turning to medications. It could just really bring a whole new experience for people that's pleasant and joyful.
Yeah. And, there's inside of those arts, inside of art, music, and dancing, even misery can be folded in. Like, you can actually express there's plenty of miserable artists out there. There's plenty of people who are finally able to express themselves effectively by finding the modality for which their art can be exposed. And art, music, dancing, singing, and drama are good ways to do that, where you don't have to cause damage to your relationships or to yourself or others. And you can actually get your expression in through the performing or visual arts.
Oh, absolutely.
The Find Your True Voice book is a similar book. It's the next iteration, if you will, just helping people actually take incremental steps towards sharing with each other their truest self. Getting in touch with, again, rediscovering your core values, what really matters to you, and then expressing that to the people in your inner circle, as well as expanding that to the community, is what that book actually points to. using none other than podcasting as a template. The idea being that podcasting is a great place to learn how to communicate either as a host or as a guest or even as a listener. And I
Yeah.
really appreciate helping people find their true voice and get in touch with their really core values so that they can effectively communicate with the people in the world.
Oh, well, you are so insightful, Dr. Fred, and I'm so proud to know you and to be able to work with you and have you as our guest today. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, there's a couple ways that people can get a hold of me. One way to really see all the things that I'm up to is inside of my comprehensive website called drfred360.com. And then the other one is my website that's been around since Welcome to Humanity was created, and that's called welcometohumanity.net. Of course, my email is drfred@welcometohumanity.net, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. And for the listeners, any kind of veterans or family or just caregivers or just interested parties, I'd be very eager to offer a discovery call where we can discuss what's on your mind, what's available to you, what are you looking for? And if it's not me that can help you, I have a lot of friends that can really help out. And I'd be glad to make proper referrals for anyone who thinks they need some assistance in these difficult times.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we just put the links in the show, we're on the chat so people can reach or look at the chat and, just really take a look at what opportunities you have for people. Okay, well, Dr. Fred, I want to thank you so much for, being on the show. And this has been a wonderful experience, talking with you and having you share, because I think a lot of our veterans, could definitely benefit from a lot of the things that you're sharing. So I want to thank our audience for being with us today. And please subscribe to the National Veterans Radio Show on YouTube and, follow us for weekly shows that we have. And again, thank you so much for, just helping our veterans, and just get out there and thank a veteran today and just show them your appreciation. And I want to say, have a good day and a good weekend, and we will catch you next time.